welcome to Breakfast at Mom's. I'm Mom, aka Sandra, and these are my daughters.
Oh, wow.
And these are my daughter-in-laws. And so we want to welcome you to your community. I don't want to say our community.
Yeah.
So we're building this online community of women with you. So we want to welcome you to your community. And we are doing week 3 of this podcast. So this week we're going to talk about the art of communication.
Yikes.
It's so easy.
Yeah, the art of communication. So I feel like the moderator for this one should be Alyssa.
Oh, goodness.
It's because we all use all of the advice you give us for marriage.
Yes. So please tell us your number one thing you tell us.
that's
Candace said it earlier today.
That is really why I think that I'm the one doing this one, is because my biggest, if you were to ask me, Alyssa, I'm getting married, what do I need to know? I always say you need to know with your spouse what hill you are willing to die on and the ones you're willing to just let go and let it be. So today, we're going to talk about the art of communication, mainly stuff like that. Mainly, we're going to talk about how do we communicate through arguments, and when we're not feeling like we love them, we do, but we don't like them. So how do we do that? And then also, how do we communicate when it just does not feel like a season of a lot of communication? I think if you are married, a lot of times it's almost that culture shock in your first couple of years, because when you're dating, I mean, you know, you're telling your girlfriends, oh, we were up until 3 a.m. just like talking, like we just talk so much. There's like so much to like talk about. And it just feels like that's how it should stay all of the time. But I mean, newsflash, you've already learned those things.
Yeah.
Like you're talking until 3 a.m. because you're learning an entire lifetime about a person and their likes and their wants and their needs and what they don't like and what they did for their 4th birthday. And like you learn all this stuff in that dating and engagement time. And then you get married and it's not like it shuts off, but then it's just kind of like, well, I know all of those let's talk until 3 a.m. conversations. Right. What does this look like now? So I really wanted to kind of first talk about that. What does it feel like when you're maybe in a season where there's not a whole lot to talk about, or maybe you feel like, oh my gosh, like all we do is go to work and we come home and then we're just trying to feed all the kids and then everyone goes to sleep and then I just want to go to bed and that's all I want to do. Like, what does that season of life look like with one another? So my first question is, what happens when conversation becomes stale or stagnant? Is that okay? And how do we kind of get out of that rut of not communicating super well? Don't all jump in at once.
I was thinking, as you know, the one who's been married the longest here.
Yes.
We're perfect.
Sorry, did we all laugh too loud at that?
What's in this cup?
I don't know that's such a good point of what you said, but I don't know that ever changes. I don't care how long you've been married. So welcome.
But what a culture shock it is.
And it doesn't change after all of these, years that Dad and I've been married. We're getting close to 40 years. But,
Have
so.
to remind me, huh?
Yeah. So I don't know that ever goes away, but I'm trying to remember the name of the book that talked about your love tank.
Personality Plus.
Personality Plus, because that's the other book. That's
my first year of marriage. I cried. Mom's like, you have to read this book. You have
to read Personality Plus because you will learn. I remember reading that book and going, oh my goodness, my husband is not trying to make me insane. It probably saved our marriage in the long run. And thank God we read it, early in. But I remember reading going, this is my husband. And he's not doing this. But they talk about your love tank and how full is your love tank. And we all receive love different ways and we feel loved. And so one of its advice is you should check in with your spouse periodically and say, how full is your love tank? Now, I don't use those words with Dad like that anymore. He'd be like, tank? What tank?
We need gas in the car.
Exactly.
What do you need? I need to go get some for you.
Yeah. Get Trevor on that.
Exactly.
So,
He'd be texting me.
Yeah,
Make an appointment for the car.
Brooks is also Dad's assistant. So yeah, so Brooks, make this happen for Mom. But I would say to him, and I have had to say this to him even recently, like, babe, man loves to work. It is his love language, I think. There's not a work love language, but if it is, it would be. And so he, comes home, and I have to tell him, you close at this time. I give you an hour. I expect you to be home. Like, you're not going to sit down there till 8:00 at night.
Yeah.
So he'll come home and we'll have dinner, and then guess where he goes? Back in the office, and not office at work, but in our home office. And I'm like, hello, I'm out here. I'd like to have a conversation with you. And so I have to say, hey, babe, we're going to have to, do a little adjustment. I know, you're wanting to work, you're wanting to do all this, and we have to get this done. And I understand that. But at the same time, I'm feeling some little left out here. So it's okay to say, I need this.
Yeah.
I'm feeling left out. Yeah. This is where I am. You don't want to do it in a
the tone is very there.
Tone.
Yes.
The Candace loves that.
The
tone is
tone.
that. The tone of how you say that. So I think that's very important.
I was going to touch on that. Also, I know I'm the newly wedded person here. Just sorry. But I saw this question. I just thought of it. And I did think about, Mom and Dad have been married for so long. Yeah. And, I'm so honored to have parents that are together and, they just love each other so much. But I put this as, I want to tell people out there, it is okay if your conversation does go stale or you don't have that connection right now. It's okay. The thing is, are you willing to get out of it?
Right.
Yeah.
Are you willing to take that step to talk properly to your partner in a nice tone and say, hey, it's really weird because I'll tell you about tone later when we get to all the other stuff, but learn that in my single life. But it is to talk and say, you know what, I really enjoyed when we did talk. And you're like, you know everything about me, honey, or and you know this about me. Then start a new hobby together. Go somewhere new together. Go to a restaurant. Mom and Dad love to try out new restaurants. I do too. I like food. Yeah. I'm all about food. But it's that part of communication and saying, and like Mom said, Colby and I have a routine also. I think everyone has a routine to relax in. So we have dinner. Let me tell you, that question of like, what do you want for dinner?
Oh, the worst question of the entire day.
Dude, the questions. I never knew that question had to be asked in my own life. I was by myself. I had a bowl of mac and cheese.
Oh, welcome to the rest of your life.
I know. I know. But I had a bowl of mac and cheese. I'm happy and content. Yeah. Now I'm like,
or Oreos,
Doritos,
and
whatever you
peanut
have.
M&Ms.
But the thing is, I always ask them, okay, do you need some you time right now, or do you want me to have some you time? And I know you have children, so it's totally different. But you're like, we must sit down and watch a movie together and relax together and talk. And I have learned that I do ask them in the beginning of our marriage. I always go, are we doing good? Is there something you want to talk about? Is there anything that I always want to work better and be the best wife, person, daughter for that other person and for myself though, for yourself.
Sure. Yeah.
And so, like I said, you are allowed to have stale. You just got to figure out, how can we make this better? Like, should we go do something? I think that's the best way.
On Candace's point, I kind of took it that way too, because my is a little different, because out of everybody, my husband is the ultimate introvert.
Oh, yes.
We never really had communication and conversation. You have to pull every single thing that you do. But, as a fire wife, we deal a lot with ropes and knots in our life. And if anybody out there might understand, but there's a saying that it says it's not just about tying the knot, it's about keeping the knot tied. And,
like that.
And so he's always learning on how to do a different knot, and he teaches firefighters as well. So he's teaching them how to tie certain knots for their safety. But so I use that one a lot when we have to, discuss these things, because, it's okay for things to have to go through a season, but are you willing to keep it tied and keep going and push through it? And in my situation with him not being a communicator, I've learned to really listen. And I think, as his mom, the number one thing for him is that because when he does talk, it's almost like an honor. It's almost like everybody stop what you're doing because he's saying something.
Yeah. There used to be a commercial called when E.F. Hutton talks or something like that. Everybody listens. That's how it is with Brandon. You better listen because he doesn't talk much.
Right. Yeah. So to your point of like, hey, how do you, is it okay? Is it not? I think that, I think in my situation, it's always been that way. It always kind of has to be. But when he is open and when he is ready to say those things, and if he's having a bad day emotionally from the job, is being that listening ear, to really understand and not, and giving him time to be able to process what he needs to process.
Yeah, I think that's the difference in personalities. My love language is words of affirmation. So if we're not talking, I am like going crazy. And so Trevor and I come to find out when I told Mom and Alyssa this, they're like, you talk to Trevor all day? I'm like, yeah, I'll call him anytime I get in the car. I'm like, what are you doing? I'm still at work. Okay, well, I love you. Have a good day. And I do this multiple times a day, like just letting him know, instead of even texting. Like me and him really don't text anymore. It's me calling him, hey, I'm cleaning the house now. What are you doing? Again, still at work.
That's so funny. I think too, when the question comes, is this okay? I mean, truthfully, it's a matter of your season. Like right now, we have a baby who is up still throughout the night. And so the last thing I want to do is stay up until 11 o'clock at night to just chit-chat. Like I'm ready to go to sleep because I have to be up in a few hours. So seasons change that a ton. And then I think practically, this is such a weird thing to say because people get odd about it. But Dale and I, since we got married, always take a shower together at the end of the night. And not in like a weird, I know that's like a sexualized thing, but it is a time to come soon. But it is a time that like
too much information.
We don't have a phone because you can't. There is no TV screen. And now, we put both of our children, they're in their own rooms, so they're already down for the night. And it's honestly a time where it's like, okay, what happened in your day today? Like, and it's such a practical thing. So for you, maybe you're like, okay, I want to be alone when I go to the shower, which is fine. But a practical thing of saying, okay, at what point at the end of our day are we going to say, even if the kids are running around, we're going to tell them, hey, we're not answering every question about turning on Peppa the Pig. We are, your father and I are talking right now. At what point are you guys going to meet at the end of the day and just talk about whatever happened? Like, I think that's super practical. That's okay. So we're good. We're communicating. We're like on a great level. And then sometimes throughout that communication, and by sometimes, I mean, probably quite often, because we're human beings, we get into an argument. And I feel like the majority of the time spouses argue, it is over like the dumbest thing in the entire world. Like we are, and we're just tied to it. So how are we arguing with our spouses in a healthy way? How do you argue like well?
I'm not a good one for this one. So I'm mad, so I don't want to talk about it.
So with Trev and I don't like, as a Christian, I know I always have to ask for forgiveness when I do something wrong. So I really don't want to do a lot of things wrong. So when I'm arguing,
we could all just be Felicia.
When I'm arguing and it's hot, like it's heated in the moment, like I don't want to say something that I'm later going to have to be like, hey, like I said this and I didn't mean it and I'm so sorry. Because what it does is he's still going to take that with him and walk around with him.
Right.
My wife said
your
this.
Words back.
Exactly. And so with us, he knows I have to process, he has to process. So we kind of just walk away until we cool down.
Yeah.
And so for us, that works.
Yeah, for sure. I think a lot of it has to do with, this is another tidbit of advice that I would give if you are getting married is, have you learned how to fight well? Like, because it's going to happen. Like this idea of, oh, well, we never fight, so we're like good to go. That doesn't, it's just not sustainable. Even if you maybe didn't fight a ton, like Dale and I didn't fight a ton when we were dating, and we don't fight a ton in marriage either, but we've learned at least how to fight well with one another. I've learned for him when I was in college and I was finally out of my mother's house, I thought that when I was angry or stressed, I could use my language flippantly because I didn't have a mom or a dad telling me to not say those words. And so when I would get angry,
well,
not like
truth comes out now.
Not in like normal conversation, but if I was mad, I was like, oh, let me just add in all the adjectives that I was not allowed to in mom's house. And I did that in college.
That's hysterically funny.
But I remember when Dale and I started dating, our very first fight ever, I had said something, not about him or to him, but I said it in the argument. He stood up and said, if you're going to use that language, we're done. And walked out of my apartment. And I was like,
oh, that backfired.
Yeah, like I was in such shock. But I learned from that moment and, thank the Lord, because now that's not something that we have, in our marriage. But I learned from that moment, that might be comfortable for me. And I just like doing that because of whatever. But for him, I cannot fight like that with him because it's going to be to no avail. So it's learning how the other person argues.
So my husband being, one of 4 very, outspoken siblings. And
is almost like the middle child, though.
And he's the introvert. So he doesn't really say a lot. He would waver one
way. The 3 of them all fight for attention. Who's the loudest? And he did not.
And he did not. But so in his adult years, my husband may or may not have a book that's how to win an argument. He has studied this.
Argument.
And I mean, it's on the bookshelf, but it's so Brandon.
You should read the book, Brooks.
Well, because it has backfired on me. But I've learned in these scenarios in the way that, because I'm emotional. I hold everything in until it's ready to come out in the tears and the bad words and all of that. And it doesn't work because he is very structured in his arguments. And whatever word you use, he's going to use back as not a flippant word, but like an absolute.
Yeah.
So I have learned in our situations that I can't use always. I can't always, you did this,
you always do this.
I have to be very specific in my feelings and what we're discussing. Otherwise, it gets lost.
Yeah.
And so I think that's something.
Is I always do this, and I know I don't.
And I don't, and then I lose that argument.
Yeah.
And then my point isn't heard.
Right.
So I've learned to be able to use my words correctly in that way, so that he hears what I'm saying and I hear what he's saying.
That's so good. So then, did you have one, Candace?
Let me just take it back into my single days,
which is only less than a year ago.
So this is for all the single ladies out there, and very picky on dating men and stuff because I was very picky.
Always.
And all this stuff. But I'm also I got a little New Yorker in me sometimes, So my voice, as I said, Tony a lot, because my tone gets very high, like the highest of tones, and I talk very fast. So, and I'm a bull, like I'm a Taurus. If you're like I will rip your head off when I'm really mad. Yeah. So in a new marriage, a new husband, also my past, I have to calm myself. I'm an overthink on most things. I overthink a lot, but I have to make sure, like Brooks saying, watch what you're saying, your tone, and try to hear their side and hear your side. And that's a lot. Luckily, Colby and I really don't get in that many arguments or tiffs, I call them, or discussions. But it's very, your tone can keep calm voices, but you can still get your point across.
For sure.
I should have been taking notes and all of this stuff y'all are saying.
If that's the case, then how do we balance the need to feel right while remaining on the same team as our partner?
All right.
Can you just zoom in on
This is why I did not moderate this one.
So I'll start because this is my go-to thing.
Because I'm always right.
Is this the hill that you are willing to die on? That is, till my dying breath, that is something. I think it was honestly a friend of Dale's that had said that to us, and we have really taken that to heart. Is this little thing? Is the shoes at the front door that now you feel like you're picking up after a 3rd child during your day? Like, is that the hill that really you're like, okay, the rest of my night, tomorrow morning is going to be ruined because I'm not willing to let go of the shoe situation. And if it is, and you're like, dude, we've been talking about this for 5 years and this is the hill I'm going to die on, then that's cool. But I think 9 times out of 10, they really aren't the things that, if you think about the rest of your night, the next morning, potentially the whole day, the next day, is this the uncomfortableness you want to sit in? Right. Or are you willing to just be like, okay, this is not the end of the world. It really is not.
So I have a funny story on that.
Oh gosh.
When Trevor and I first got married, again, I've heard this advice from Alyssa, and so I'm like, okay, I'll try to use it. She's been married, 3 months longer than me.
Honestly, an expert at this point.
Literally. So we have a canister on our counter where, you put all the wooden utensils. Well, Trevor would put them in the drawer. And I never understood, because I'm like, it's right there on the counter. And so I'm just like, you know what? We're not going to fight about this. Don't want to fight about this. So I would just take them and put them back up as I see them. Well, one day he goes to the kitchen, where's all the wooden spoons? I'm glad you asked. They're right here on the counter. And since then he knows where they go, but I didn't start a fight. It took time for me to put it back, but patience won that one.
Yes.
Yeah.
So moms out there who have kids who are, in elementary school, you might relate to this. So when I was looking at, Alyssa had told us that we might be talking about this, and we were at home and we're sitting at the kitchen counter doing math homework with Kingston, right? So my 7-year-old is doing math, and you can do math the way we learned it.
Oh my gosh.
Or you can do math the new way that the schools are teaching, right? And I think that it hit me when I was doing that, and Brandon was trying to help him. Things were getting tense and heated, and it was just like, why can't we just do it the way that we learned how to do it, right? But both ways you're going to get the same answer.
Right.
Yeah.
So when you come to these situations where it's like, do I need to be right? Or it doesn't need to be an us situation.
Yeah.
You're both going to eventually come to the same answer. If you push for, if you're right and you're going to push, you're going to get there, but it's not going to be fun.
Yeah.
Or you can look at it together and have an us conversation and how are you and I going to do this together to find that answer. Yeah. And I think that it really, that was something that hit me. And, moms out there, you'll know that, 2 + 2 is 4, no matter if it's, 2 broken down to 1 with 1, you'll get there.
It's stressing me out just thinking about it.
I know, right?
God, I do not have any little ones in
wait till you get into division.
Oh Lordy. I want to touch on what Brooks is saying about that, about being right. I'm a weirdo. I don't have to be right. No, let me place that. Let me tell you.
I just want zooms of all of mom's faces during this. Like, please pay attention, whoever is in post.
This is what happens. All right, so I'm not worried about, I don't want to win a war. I want just to be heard.
Oh, yeah.
Because
good.
I have been in a relationships. I know. You're a wise one over here.
Listen, you know what I'm realizing in this entire thing? That you all are very, very smart, and I need to be paying attention to y'all because I am failing at this ethically.
So this is where I come from. I've been in past relationships that they had to be right all the time. It was their way or the highway. I've been in those, ladies. It was like a 7-year relationship of craziness, and they had to be right. So when I became in this new relationship and everything, it was more like, I just wanted to be heard. I don't have to be right. I just want to make sure that you're listening to what I just have to say.
That's good.
And understand it.
That's really
good. And that's all I want.
That's really good.
Because I don't have to be who spilled, don't cry over spilt milk. Like she said, it's not worth it to me. And at my time, in my age, I just life's not worth it. Like that. Like to argue with my person I love so deeply over something so small. Yeah. And it's going to be over in 5 minutes.
Yeah.
I think that, and compromising. Hey, what spoons do you want to leave out? Okay, can we keep these ones, the sharp ones, away from the kids in the boxing? That would be okay. You know what I mean? Like
but they belong in the canister.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I bought the canister
can grow
for.
mold, and you can have to wipe it off. There's different things.
No, that's
I say
so true.
compromising with your person, like what it's about, or like, hey, how'd you see this? Oh, you know what I did. Hence, we'll get on this little quick story. I read a text wrong a couple days ago. I was in my womanly anger, high heated moments. I said something wrong. I didn't read his text of why he said it and how the tone was. I read the tone wrong. add a text message. No more in the text family. Like it's quick reaction, but it's all about, just listening and understanding where they're coming from. And if you hear both sides, like, oh, why'd you do that? I like when the plates are like this. Right. I told you this. Yeah. Someone didn't hear. Yeah. Someone didn't listen. He was like, I'm so sorry. I was, my brain was thinking this and I should have been paying attention to you. Yeah. It's all about, how to fix it, not why it's happening. Just like, okay, sorry, next time I'll pay attention. Thank you. Next time I'll make sure you're focused on me before I start talking. Right. It's all about that.
I think there's just this level, and this is kind of the last point that I had on here, is that there's a level of truly honoring your husband. Like as a Christian wife, there has to be a level of respect and honor that we do have towards our spouse. And I think for me, when there's moments of arguments, 9 times out of 10, in my perspective, it's because I feel like I am the wife of the house, the woman of the house. I'm making the schedule. I'm the one doing all the cleaning and the cooking and making sure the kids are where they're supposed to be. And so sometimes in that just scheme of things, for me, I feel like, oh my gosh, why are you not helping? Like it feels like this heightens, like I'm doing 7,000 things. I have all these different hats, and where are you at? Like, where are you meeting me at? And it becomes more of a selfish internal thought, although it doesn't feel like that because you're like, well, I'm mad because I'm serving everyone else and I need some help here. But I think for me, the easiest way to pull myself back into that right mind and good perspective is going, okay, if I were to sit down right now and argue with my husband about this and say, like Brooke said, well, you never do the dishes and you never help with X, Y, and Z. I know at the end of the day, the hurt that he would feel, that he feels like, okay, so what you're telling me is you are the one that is always doing stuff for the family and I have done nothing for them. Right. And that's not true. So then internally when I'm mad, scrubbing the dishes by myself, already in an argument and he doesn't know it. When I'm mid scrub, I start thinking about this. Okay, well, if I say like, hey, you never do this, you never help. Well, then I start thinking about all the things he does do. Well, he does provide for our family. Well, he is the one to help put them to sleep at night. Well, he does. And then I'm like slowly like, oh, he does so much. Like, I love him so it does. It's a quick way, I think, at a practical way for you to say, okay, what does my spouse do well? And how does he love me and our family so well? Okay, well, then I can honor him in the way that I serve and the way that I choose to hold back my tongue just a little bit, because I know that he is doing the best he possibly can and I'm meeting him at that same level. So I feel like...
Yeah. And I was going to say, to add to that, I think even to get that out of your head, for us that are outside of the house and we're around a community, is keeping your tongue to yourself about those frustrating moments and not belittling him outside of that.
Yeah.
Because when you're speaking that out in a group and you're putting that out there to other people, it's already cultivating that in your heart so that when you do get back to him, it's going to take you longer to recognize that honor and respect you have for him. Yeah. So to really making sure you're watching what you're saying to other people, it may be fun in the moment if everybody's bashing or talking and talking about their problems. And there's times to vent. And there's times to laugh about people.
To the right people,
But when you're doing it maliciously, that it almost breaks.
Or wanting sympathy.
Right. Yeah. But it almost, you got to think like you and your husband are a team and you're breaking his trust in that.
Yeah.
Right.
You're breaking his trust and confidentiality. You're supposed to be the one that each other has.
Yeah.
Well, there's that. And there's also when you're talking negative about your spouse, you're going to forgive them because that's your spouse and you're going to love them. You're changing the perspective of someone else.
That's so true.
And I have to say, that on a no word. Two things. One of the reasons I have to say your husband Dale, my brother-in-law. Actually, he's my favorite one.
He's the only brother-in-law.
I had to say, and I mentioned this to Colby too, and we were talking about this when we were talking. Dale has never put down my sister. Ever. No. He constantly tells how great and wonderful wife. I have to say thank you, Dale. Yes. Like he is
sweet. I'm going to cry in this episode now.
No joke. No, I would say
if I say anything even to him I just appreciate the husband you are, the dad you are. He goes, well, Alyssa makes it easy.
He does.
He does. He says that every time.
And let me tell you,
he does. It on my face now.
No, but he really does. And I had to say, I told Colby, I go, I hope you say those things about me too. And I think another thing I just want to touch on really fast about arguing. You're arguing in your head. But have you asked him ever a question? Go, how should we do something different here?
So true. Yeah. So true.
That's the thing. I ask Colby, like certain things he does, him and Tabitha, which is do things with Roxy. I ask him, what do you think about this?
Yeah.
Because I don't want to have an argument, like, because she's, you know, I mean, I have to make certain decisions, but like, ask him, say, hey, I'm having a hard time. What can I do different? Or can we do something different here?
For
like,
sure.
To fix this.
Yeah,
and
talking about like
questions.
Even the dishes, which is such a funny thing, but I would always get mad that he had just stopped. Our rule when we got married was he was going to do the dishes after I cooked, and that went away.
Cook, you clean. Yeah,
right. So we had a discussion about that, and he was like, well, the last thing I want to do after I just worked all day, just put down all the kids, is to now go in there and do the dishes. Like, I want to sit down. So our compromise was, okay, if I go and do the dishes, will you just fold the laundry that was in the thing? And he's like, oh yeah, I can watch TV and fold mindlessly, not a big deal. So it's always a conversation for sure. But honestly,
and I think it's the Holy Spirit too.
Yes.
Like when you're sitting there, you're washing the dishes and you're mad, you're giving that space, like, okay, and then the Holy Spirit's reminding you the things that he does. Right. And Galatians tells us, so I say, let the Holy Spirit guide your lives. Then you won't be doing what your sinful nature craves. And it just goes back to, we're not going to yell, we're not going to get mad at them. Yeah. We're reminding ourselves what they truly are doing for us and around the house.
Right.
So true.
Well, obviously, I'm going to be all of you when I grow up. So that's how I feel about all of that. But we want to know what you have to say. Yeah. You know, what are some ways that you communicate well? What are something that, you know, you do well? Because we want to know, because we're learning. I mean, my gosh, you know, I've got to go home and change my whole life now. But I'm so honored that these women are in my life. So, all right. So we're going to be done for this week. So until next time, ladies, keep shining and just keep pressing on and lift each other up one podcast at a time. All right. Have a good day.
I'm not going to miss the cheers this time, guys.